Thank you. Yes. So we want to make sure that we're using the things correctly so you don't have any issues with it. Anyway, the site that I threw in the chat, that's the one that we want to, if you have any questions about it, you can go there and get the information you need, or you can always shoot me a text or an email. There's actually an agent, for those of you that's new at this, fairly new at this, there's an agent that has several years of experience, and every time she wants to run an ad or do something different, she'll send it over and say, hey, can you take a look at this? I don't have a problem with that. I've said that in the past, even with my level of experience, I would ask somebody to take a look at it to make sure I didn't miss something, right? That's the whole idea behind this. I want to make sure we do that. Any questions on using the realtor logos, anybody? Because we are talking about marketing today, and a lot of this falls right in line with that. Questions, comments? Nope. Okay. One of the others was in the chat, in the mission, I believe it was mission's chat. There was a comment made about some lawsuits that are going on with NAR. Those have been going on for a while. There's several of them. There's not just one or two. Some of that has to do with competition. And this site here, it's NAR. You can go to competition.realtor. That'll bring this up. Competition.realtor will bring that up for you. But there's a link in the chat as well. Some of the things that are going on, some of them have already been dismissed, but there's still others that are out there. It doesn't really have anything to do with you and I on a daily basis. We have a job to do, and as long as we're doing it correctly and taking care of the consumer, we're not going to have any issues. It's about competition, and in a nutshell, what it says, what it's about is some sellers and some real estate companies have said that the major corporate type offices have said that with the rule with MLS that it's not, we're not allowing competition, right? And sellers are being forced to pay for the buyer's agent's commission. So it's unfair practice, basically, in a nutshell. That's what they're saying. Like I said, some of those have already, there's at least one just recently that was dismissed, and NAR is working on that. We'll take care of it. If you have any questions about MLS and what goes on that page that I just put in the chat, there's actually an MLS and action sheet here that shows you why MLS is important and the way it's supposed to be working. The biggest part of it, it levels the playing field between the large and the small brokerages, and it makes sure that we have everything up to date if we use it the way we're supposed to, which is why we have the MLS committee and some of the rules that we have to follow as well. We want to make sure that we keep that up there. Any questions on this one? I think the biggest thing that'll come out of this in the long run may be the change in the way that we actually approach buyer representation. And what I'm talking about there is just simply the fact that we let buyers know that there is a fee for it. Somebody has to pay that. And we've always, or pretty much always, gotten that fee from the seller. We see that fee from the seller, which is not a problem. I don't see that changing personally, but the buyer needs to know that we are getting paid. We're not doing it for free, right? That's the biggest part of it. One of the other items we have is that's who we are. When we talk about marketing, and for those of you that have your websites up and running, what I'm about to show you, you can actually use. It's part of NAR's national ad campaign. And on the national ad campaign, they have bits in here that you can download and use. You can put them on your website. These will be up and available until February of 2023. And there's links in here for the YouTube side of it. And there's also radio parts that can be used. And there's scripts in here for the radio ads. We can use these. These have all been approved. They're good to go. And it just ties in with NAR's marketing that that's who we are, right? I will share with you though, for those of you that plan things out, at the end of the year, we always have to pay NAR dues, right? At the end of the year. And that ad campaign is going to go up $10. There'll be some information come out on that near the end of the year, but just so you know about it, it's going to go up $10 just for this ad that goes on. Any questions on that one? They have not raised that. That fee has been set pretty much, I want to say, since about, I don't know, about 6 years, something like that. It's been there. One of the other items I want to share with you all real quick this morning is Texas Realtors is looking for volunteers for their committees. And that link I just threw in the chat, you can go there and check it out. Here's some of the committees that are there. There's individuals within the company that are within different offices that have served on different committees at the Texas Realtors level. It's not a whole lot of extra, but at the same time, you can gain something from that education wise, depending on what you want to get into. There's a few agents that have been involved in several of these committees, but I want to throw it out there because this is open until June, I believe, June 13th, something like that, I think. You can volunteer for one of these committees. And most of the meetings they have are virtual, or they'll do them in February and September. They may only have two meetings for the year, and little virtual meetings throughout the year, maybe, depending on the committee that you're on. But it allows you to actually get involved in what's going on in the business that you represent. Any questions on this one? Nope. All right. It's been pretty quiet this morning. That's not good. Last thing I'd like to just share with you real quick, because of a comment that was made earlier this week by another agent. Please remember, TREC has a whole bunch of rules, and of course, most of them we should know because of pre-licensing. However, you're not going to remember all that, and that's why I occasionally throw things like this out. An unlicensed person, we are not supposed to allow an unlicensed person access to a property. And we want to make sure that we are doing the right thing. There is a way to do that, and that's only for lease properties. That's legal, not something I'd recommend, but if it's for lease property that's vacant, there's a way to do that. But generally speaking, for showing or access to the property, it's not supposed to be an unlicensed individual providing access for an unlicensed individual into that property. Even if it's your listing and it's to help you out because you're just so wrapped up, and even if it's a relative or a spouse or a really close friend, they are not licensed. They don't get access. You don't just give them the keys, say, here, go help me out. Anybody have any questions on that one? All right. I love the little coffee. Love that. All right. One of the other things I wanted to share with you was on Google Business. We've talked about this in the past, and I just wanted to throw it out one more time. We had there's a class yesterday. The only one on here that I seen in there yesterday was Eric. Eric was on there. Eric, if you don't mind, what did you think about that class?
It was really good. I'm not very good with all the social media, so I had my wife sit in with me, and it literally was one of the best webinars that I'd been a party to. And not only that, it was actually free with not a bunch of solicitation for other things. He was very free with the information, and I've already started implementing some of the things that he stated. A lot of it was above my head, but I'll figure it out.
Yeah, yes, just takes time. It'll be okay. I was glad to see you in there. They and that was the Google Business page. I posted those links in the two Facebook pages. That's what Jeremy Collins. He works with Remax, with the Remax company. He's a tech guy, and he does those. He has a site where you can go to and you can actually see some of the videos as well. But he also does now he also does coaching with it and et cetera. But anytime he has something free, it's worth going to, and he does several of those. And those of you that's been around me know I do a lot of those where I'll listen to a lot of those, especially the free ones, to see if we can get something out of it. One of the things he brought up yesterday, and the reason I wanted to show you this, we've talked about getting reviews done. So once again, once you have your Google Business page set up, which only takes about 10 minutes to get it up. I mean, at least get it running, right? And then they'll send you a card, you go in, you log that in, and you're up and going. But right here where it says get more reviews, if you click on that, there's a link right there. And that link can be used so many different ways. One of the ways that Jeremy brought up yesterday, and I want to say I think we've tossed this out before, but I could take this link and do a couple things with it. One is I could throw it in my email, and for every email that goes out, I could have it in there. Please complete a review of my services, or please do a quick review. Do something of that nature. We're trying to get more reviews on your Google page, right? Your Google business page. This is one of the ways of doing it. One of the other ways that I've seen this done myself is you take this link and throw it into a couple things. You can take this link and throw it into Canva and create a QR code. What I would do with it is I throw it in remax.net, tiny URL, and then take that link and throw it into Canva and create a QR code real quick so that I could share that on my signature or on a website even, so that they can use that. The reason I use the remax.net tiny URL is because it tracks how many times it's been opened, which is what we want to know. How many people are actually doing this? Because sometimes you'll get people, you and I get people ask us, businesses ask us to do reviews all the time. Sometimes we'll open them up, maybe start, but not finish. Sometimes we don't even open them up. So the fact that you have them out there and how many people are actually opening it and then not completing it, you'll be able to see the difference there. So you'll know how effective it is for you. That's a good question, Ruby. Do they do Google reviews go to your Remax site or to Facebook, or do they all go back to Google? The main focus is getting it on Google. However, if you have your website set up inside that platform, the Booj platform, right? Inside that platform, there is a place to put Google Analytics in there. And what I hope to do with that here, again, is have another one of those sessions where we can actually run through this and do some of these. That website, you should have your Remax website up and running. Everybody should have that. That should have been one of the first things you do with it. Anybody have any questions on this? Any other questions? So to answer your question, Ruby, we can link some of that together. It does, your website, if it's built through the platform, can be linked to Google and even Zillow. And I think right now those are the only two that they link to. Anybody have anything else? Nope. All right, we're going to change this for just a bit. Just a second to see how this comes up. Not like that. There you go. All right, so on the screen right now, what you have is we're going to run through some of the slides that go with this package. This was in that handout. Again, it's on your calendar. So if you have access to the Google Calendar, you can click on it. The handout's right there, and all these items are in there for you to use as well. On this slide, I'm not going to go through every one of the slides, but there's some of them I want to touch base on. I want to talk about them and why some of what we do is important. We want to track the kind of results we get. And when we talk about tracking the results, everything you do is going to give you something. Even if it gives you nothing, you know that, okay, well, it didn't work. You may not want to stop doing it. Just doing something one time doesn't work. If you're going to take the time to put something together, use it so that you can see what the results are 2 or 3 times at least to see what kind of results you get out of it. And that's why on this one, the reason I wanted to show you this one is be patient and do it systematically. And when I say that, I want to show you something and just don't laugh at this, okay? Don't laugh at this. But I want to share something with you. This is an old brochure that I used to use. And I use this on the for sale by owners. I'm sorry, on the expired listings. I had a system where I'd send 3 letters out to expired listings. The first one was, hey, you're probably aware of the fact that your property is no longer on the market. Give me a call, let me help you, that kind of thing.
We don't see the flyer, Mac.
Okay, I'm gonna do that. I would send out 3 letters. One of them was your property's expired, and the second one was, hey, I sent you the first letter, you didn't respond, here's your chance. And the third letter, I would include this, and this is actually a brochure is what it is. So let me share that with you. And just so you, all right, you see that on there? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So this was an old brochure that, and I've done, when I first got into business, this is one of the very first things I did was had a brochure that was created. And there's 2 reasons I'm showing it to you. One is you need to have something, that third letter that I would send out would say, you're not going to relist your property. I understand that, it's okay. However, please keep this. If you change your mind in the future, give me a yell. And I pick up listings that were been expired for 6 months or more. In fact, one lady here in Harlingen called me. She said, I was cleaning out our house. We are now moving. We never sold it. We're cleaning out the house, and I found your brochure in the bottom of the closet. Can you help us get the property sold? And of course, the answer to that is always going to be yes. But this, I wanted to show you this because of this. On this page right here, and this is something that I was sharing with I didn't show the brochure, but I shared the information with the new agents yesterday when we were talking about this. Almost every one of us in this business have some kind of testimonial that we could possibly use. All right, so let me hit unmuted. There we go. So this Stephen Lynn that you see here at the top, that was one of the colonels I used to work for. And I'd shot him an email, say, is it okay if I use part of this? It was a write-up that he had done for me. And then Mr. Davidson was a parent that I had worked with out at the Marine Military Academy. And he had written this, letter to the colonel and them at the academy at one time. And what I did was I wanted to just pull this little bit out and use that in my advertising. And so the reason I'm showing this to you, when we talk about getting testimonials, you may not use the entire write-up, you may use part of it, but get their permission to do that and use it to benefit you, right? They're giving it to you to use and give them credit as long as they're okay with it. In some cases, they may not want their name there, so you use their initials, or maybe just the first initial and the last name, or something of that nature. I have seen, not in this company, but I've seen agents in other places where when they list somebody's name or refer to somebody like Stephen Lynn, for example, they'll actually put their phone number there. And when we're talking about marketing and trying to get information out there, you want to have testimonials that you can use, but don't put something out there that's going to cause somebody else some grief. In fact, as a listing agent, one of the courses I taken years ago, they showed a list of references. If you want a reference on me as a listing agent, here's a list of individuals I've helped them sell their homes, or here's a list of individuals I helped buy homes, and it had their name, their phone number. Actually, I was up in Austin, is where I got that from, one of the classes up there, and they had, but they had permission from everybody to put that on there. Today, I'm not too comfortable with doing something like that, but there are some really good benefits there. Is if somebody was deciding whether they wanted to use you or not, here's some proof that you're okay. So that might be all right. I just wouldn't put it online necessarily. Any questions about that? Get the references and use them. That's what we want to do with them. Make sure you do it with permission, not just off the wall. right, so in running through some of this, when we talk about marketing, the biggest part of this is going to be on farming. We want to get into the market changing and doing what needs to be done to try to generate some business in other aspects. And some of us have done this, some of us have not. And if you have not done this, please take a look at this. Please consider this. Your foundation should be your sphere of influence, right? Everything, our primary focus should be people we know. That should be our primary focus. However, you have other things that you need to look at as well. And one of them is the farming aspect of it. And farming is where you take a subdivision or an area and say, I want to make this mine, so that everybody in here, every time they think about real estate, or every time somebody they know says something about real estate, they think of you. And the only way they're going to do that is with you reminding them on a regular basis. So on here, when we talk about farming, for example, 8x8 is 8 postcards, one a week for 8 weeks, right? That's staying in touch. You have the neighborhood update cards. We're going to talk about some of these as we go through this and give you some examples that you can use with that. But if you're not doing something like this, think about it. Think about trying to do that. And there's ways to identify a subdivision. You can use MLS, you can use RPR to identify a subdivision and see what kind of turnover there is in there, right? Because you want to have a subdivision that has turnover. Speaking of that, I apologize for this. This just came to mind. There was somebody had made a comment about CMAs, and there's a recording on YouTube. Just you can go to YouTube. It's under my name, Mac McFarland. It's the last time Eric did a CMA class. That's on YouTube to help those individuals that needed that. Alex, you had a question?
Yeah, sorry. Brian is trying to get into the meeting. I guess the internet went out at the office or something like that. So he's no longer in the meeting.
Okay. Thanks.
Sorry.
Yep. That's what happened. Yada got knocked out there too. All right. Thank you. So we're going to see it. And again, on the farm, when we talk about doing this, there's so many different ways to do it. One of the things that's on here is a neighborhood website, and you don't want to get into a neighborhood website, in my opinion, until you actually have some experience set up with it and you have everything else established and you're ready to maybe hire somebody else to help you with your marketing, because that's going to take a while to keep going. It's going to take a little bit of effort to keep it going. So why do we do it? When you take a look at mailing things out, you have a system that's going to generate some leads for you. And when we talk about mailing things out, again, you can, where it says mail sometimes, if you have a campaign set up, like in our CRM system, you can set up a campaign where drip mail is going out on a regular basis. That works for this. If I had a subdivision where I had everybody's email, and there's systems where you can get that. If I wanted to get the email address for everybody in the subdivision I live in, I can go to one of these systems and get that without too much of a problem or cost even. Or the old school way would be go door knocking, introduce yourself to them, and actually get their email that way with permission, which is what we're supposed to have to begin with, to actually email them on a regular basis. So you can do it 2 different ways, but the hard copy mail works, and it works today a lot better than it did before because there's less mail in the mailbox, and you want to stand out. You want to do something that other people won't do, and that's a big part of that. So when you take a look at sending things out, we want to give them market updates, and market updates are really, really good. Market neighborhood updates. When we take a look at those, when we take a look at them, you can get them real easily from RPR, and you can just plug some numbers in. You can almost create the postcard itself right in RPR. if a lot, Ruby, can you unmute for a second? There's a question she asked there.
Yes, sorry, I kind of didn't make sense. I reread it. I was going to ask, I had somebody reach out to me just right now, and she was asking me that a lot close to where she lives has been vacant for quite some time, right? And she's wanting to see if it's for sale or if they would consider selling it, but she doesn't know who the owners are or anything like that. So I wanted to see, is there a way for us to know? Because I mean, we could search it, but I know that the number doesn't come out or anything like that. So I wanted to ask if anybody knew how I could go about that.
So there's, there may be other ways. I'll give you two real quick. The one of them is you can just go to the tax records, and on the tax records, you're going to have the property address and the mailing address. So you can mail them something. It's not going to have their phone number. If you go to RPR, you can pull that same information up and it'll show the history of it as well. And if they have a regular landline old phone system, if they have that available, that'll show up there. Their cell phones will not show up, but you can get their information from there as well. Anybody have something? There's nobody else. There's nobody else in the waiting room.
I can add, HomeSnap has phone numbers sometimes.
Okay. But that's generally, yeah, there's nobody else in the waiting room.
Okay, thank you guys.
Okay, because I had Gustavo, Brenda, and Tanya said they were waiting to get in. Sorry.
Okay. Gustavo?
Also, if you search HCAD, search by map, because a lot of these properties don't have an address. I think that's what Ruby was getting at. If you go into HCAD, you do a search by map and click on that property, then you can get the details on it and get the mailing address for the owners.
Awesome. Absolutely. Thanks. All right. Yadi, do you have something else?
No,
Last
I just wanted for you to make me co-host because
Yeah.
the internet went out here for a moment at the office
Got it.
and couldn't get in. Sorry.
Okay. No problem. Good. All right. So one of the systems as far as getting information as well as the Red X is one of those that works for getting that, and Realtor, I think it's called Realtor Resource. Drawing a blank right now, but there's other sources out there. And Diana, what is Landglide? What is that?
It's like you put the address. That's what Ceci showed me when I was looking for a certain property or the information on a client. Well, not a client, but some property that my clients were interested in. And you input the address and it actually gives you the address. I mean, the phone number and the names of the owners on there. So yeah, that's an app that we've used, Landglide.
Okay, thanks. All right. And again, you might get in touch with somebody like that as well, Ruby, that the property is just sitting there and they don't want to do anything with it, because there's property in our area that's like that. There's a house over here that I think they're just waiting to condemn the thing. I don't know. It's been vacant ever since we've lived here, and which is 2002. And somebody comes along and cuts the grass every 3 or 4 weeks to keep them from getting cited, but they won't sell. They want to keep it in the family, which is crazy. It's been sitting vacant all this time. All right, we talk about neighborhoods. When you choose a neighborhood, this is what I was getting at earlier. You want something that has a turnover, so you can actually go in and take a look at what's sold. I would use the last 6 months or a year. What is sold in the neighborhood in comparison to what's on the market now in the neighborhood. And you want something that has some turnover. But the other part of that is, and I've shown this in some of the classes, you also want to look at who's the other agent. So if I pull up a subdivision, and I've not done this, we'll do this in June, but pull up a subdivision, and actually in some subdivisions, you'll see there's one agent that has the majority or has had the majority of the listings. That is an area where you can get into, but it may be a little hard because they're somewhat established. If you pull up a subdivision and you see there's 20 cells and 20 different agents, there's holes all over that one. That one you could probably get into if you go in and give good customer service and get in there and get your name known within that subdivision. So you want to look for the turnover, but you also want to look for holes in that system. And I'm not saying if I pull up a subdivision and there's 20 cells and they're all with one agent, that doesn't mean not work that. That just means you can work it, but you're going to have to give a better service than what that person does. So you're going to need to learn a little bit about that individual. That it works, but it's going to take some time. So just know that was one of the goals. That's one of the goals we had in the past, and it does work. One of the things that gets mentioned from time to time is the 8x8. And again, that's sending something to them once a week for 8 weeks. You're trying to get your name to stay top of mind, right? We want to work with that. And you can do that with a variety of things, but you want to keep adding to it. You want to keep trying to do something else with it. So you have your neighborhood updates, you have the monthly newsletter type stuff, you have your information about you. One of the things that we've taught over the years is that 3 mail outs a month, for just as an example, the very first one could be about you, your company, and real estate. The second one could be about you and the company, or you and real estate. And then the third one could be about you, right? Just alternate them up a little bit. But hitting this 8x8 works. This system works. It's been around for a long time. A lot of people use it, but you want to make it yours so that you actually reach out to them. And again, the postcard aspect of it works because there's not as much activity going on there. Again, when we look at 8x8, when do you mail them? Mail 1 card a week for 8 weeks. That works and gets information out there. Neighborhood update postcards would be in addition to that. So you do your 8x8, and another one would be the neighborhood updates. And the neighborhood updates, some of you heard me talk about that. That's exactly what I was taught to do, and that's what I did at the beginning quite often. And in Austin, I was using a subdivision. Here, there was not a subdivision that had enough turnover to make that work within the Harlingen area. So I started doing something different with it. When we talk about the postcards for your farm area, we want to make sure that we have just a postcard, because if you put it in an envelope, they're probably not going to open it up, right? We want it out so that it can be seen. Alex, thanks for the positive note. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I went to the post office yesterday. I had to pay my PO box. It went up, and they're like, "Oh yeah, postage is gonna go up in June." I'm like, "Again?"
So buy the forever stamps now. Got a stack of them right here myself. Buy the forever stamps now, and don't worry about it. And there's other ways to do that. In all honesty, when we talk about doing a neighborhood, you're talking about a subdivision. So you probably have access to EDDM, which is every door direct mail. And every door direct mail means the mail person for that route there has they don't have an address on it. Do you give them you can actually Google it if you don't have it. And we've had somebody come in as a guest speaker as well, talking about EDDM. But what they do is you give them the letter or the flyer or whatever it is you're using, and it goes to every door on their route. So you have to have a specific number. And if you Google it, it'll come up. If you've got any questions, let me know. I've used that. It works. It's cheaper. I don't know what the price is today. It was 17 and a half cents. That's what it was. We had somebody come in about a year ago or so that talked about that and how that works as well, to give us an update on it. And yes, Annette, appreciate that. Note that's in the chat. Updates. Here's what we're talking about, an update. So you do your 8x8, but then you also send out market updates. And this is just an example of the one I was taught to use and the one I used and was able to get results out of it. It was average list price, average sales price, average days on the market, average price per square foot, average year built, average square footage, something of that nature in there. All averages for a subdivision, for a specific subdivision. And then at the bottom, if you have any real estate questions, give me a call. One of the other things here on this, for example, today, one of the things I used to use was to find out what your home is worth in today's market, please give me a call. Today, I would probably use a QR code or something of that nature to draw that, to help drive that to your website, right? That's what you want to do, is drive more traffic to your website so you can keep that up and running, keep it going and generate the leads off of it. You want other people to share that, right? So the QR code helps them do that. They may not remember the written address for your website, but the QR code can help with that. Neighborhood update cards. When we talk about those, once again, you have your just listed, just sold cards. This says mail them out quarterly to your farm area. So if I'm making this subdivision mine, if that's my focus, then this says on a quarterly basis. I used to do it on a monthly basis, but if you're doing the 8x8, so you're getting people, every time somebody comes into your system, they automatically go on the 8x8, right? So every time I meet somebody new, they're going to get something from me once a week for 8 weeks. That's how that works. Every time I put somebody new in the system, they're going to go on that, right? So you set your campaigns up where they can get that by email, if nothing else, 8x8, right? Or the hard mail. And then you want to send out the neighborhood update cards. That works. Just listed, just sold. This says quarterly to the farm area. I was doing a monthly update with those. Just listed, just sold. And the monthly updates would go out. Today, when we talk about the just listed, just sold, or open house cards, who would you send them to today? Besides the farm area, who do they go to?
The realtors? Well, I mean, if you're gonna do an open house, you're gonna try to get the realtor so they can bring their people in to sell a house.
Okay, all right. You could do that, maybe to their office or something. I don't know if I want to send one to each one of them, or if you have individuals you know are working that area. What I was getting at was just listed, just solds. Go to our sphere of influence. People that know you, like you, want to see you be successful, you need to let them know you're hustling. So just listed, just sold, and open house cards, absolutely go to your sphere of influence. Let them know you're out there hustling. When you're doing an open house, by the way, since that was brought up as well, make sure that you have it on MLS so that gets fed out to all the syndicated sites, and we get that exposure on that as well. And one of the things I shared with one of the offices, an old school way of doing open houses was if we had 2 or 3 open houses going at a time or more. If I had an open house at 123 A Street, and let's say Alex was doing one on 245 A Street, and Ruby was doing one over here in the same general area, right? Not necessarily the same subdivision, but same general area, which for Harlingen is anywhere in the city. We would if we were all doing one on Sunday, didn't matter what the hours were, we would all have flyers that had a list of all the properties we were going to have open that day. So besides the flyer for the property I was marketing, I would also have a flyer that had all the properties that were going to have open houses on Sunday for our company, right? That kind of thing. And sharing that will help drive traffic to those websites as well. I mean, to those open houses as well. And the reason for that is most of the people that come into to your open house are not necessarily going to buy that property, but they're out looking. And if they're not going to buy this property, I might be able to represent them in buying the next one, right? Or going to look at that next house. It might be listed by Gina or somebody else. Right? We want to be able to, we get the traffic, we want to be able to hold on to it. And the way we do that is by providing a service to them. So the quarterly farming, when we talk about the quarterly farming aspect of it, you actually need to focus on the neighborhood, but every once in a while, you want to throw something out about you. right? What are you bringing to the table? And sometimes when agents do that, they'll show properties that have sold, that they've sold in the area. Well, if you're a new agent, that doesn't work, right? Because you may not have had any transactions or that many transactions or in that area at all you're trying to develop. But what about the company? What's the company done? And we can always work with that. We never want to list the actual address or anything, but maybe the street might work. If you need help with that, let me know. Here's a farming postcard, just to give you an idea of what one might look like. And again, that's in the handout as well, so you can take a look at it. It's just to get information out to the area. You want to be the source of information. You want people to come to you to know that you're a reliable source as well, to be able to make that work for you. And here's a dialogue if I was going to make a call, but it's a dialogue. It's a dialogue for making a call for farming, right? For anybody that received the mailers, and that works. This same dialogue would work if you were actually door knocking that neighborhood. If that was something you wanted to work into. Move up buyers and sellers. I'm sorry, move up sellers, or the buyer side of it. When we look at the tax records, and Eric, you can jump in if you know of a way. I don't know of a way right now, just off the top, to separate these out. I used to have a system that allowed me to go in and do a search based on assessed value. So I could find properties that were between the range of 200 and 300, for example. And then I could go in and find properties that were between 150 and 200 or whatever. So that allowed me to actually look for move ups or move downs on listings as well. And tie that in with the buyer and look for the buyers that might be able to move into that. And I look for the buyers for those based on rental properties. The system we used to use for that was Carson Map. Carson Map would allow us to search based on the assessed value. And I don't know of a system today that we have that does that just off the top. Eric, do you know of one that would allow you to do a search based on assessed value?
No, I do not.
Anybody else? Anybody? Carino? Gustavo? Any of you? Nope. All right. Appreciate it. That was a system. In fact, as a listing agent, I used to use that that was part of my deal. I'd say I do target marketing. I'm targeting buyers specifically for your house that'll move up or down, right? And I would tie that in with rental properties in the area. So marketing can be a lot of things. What we want to do is focus on what's working for you and get you started, get everybody going in the right direction. And one of the key things to that is that website. Make sure we have that set up. If you don't have it set up, I'm gonna get that going. Video opportunities. Remember that we can always use video. That's what we want to do. And the more video you have, the better. Please keep them short and sweet. We don't need long videos for marketing purposes. We want to keep them very specific to make that work for you. We've talked about this one already. If you're trying to run a neighborhood website, it can be time consuming. You may not want to get into that until you actually have some help with it. If you were running a neighborhood website, here's some of the information you can put on there. Does anybody have a neighborhood website? No. How about a neighborhood Facebook page? I thought there was one in here.
Yeah, there are a few pages here in Corpus Christi.
Okay, thanks, Natalie. Appreciate it. Are you getting anything off of that yet, or?
No, I did put myself in the Naval Air Station because we have the base here, the wives group, the military wives group, but I am part of the neighborhood group that my daughter's school attends. I'm a part of a few here. I try to stay active in.
Okay.
I do advertise there. Unfortunately, nothing yet. I'm still new though.
And that's okay. It's all right. It's being consistent. And we used to do, when the kids were in school, we used to do a ton of advertising with the sports programs. And in fact, there was in the gym, there was a leaderboard for the lifters, power lifters, and the workouts for the football team and all that. We had our name splashed all over there, sponsored that entire board for them for a couple of years. And the only ones that were seeing it was the coaches and the players. But there was a coach that bought 3 properties, So that was worth, I think we paid $250, $300 for it. So certainly worthwhile. But if you're trying to do something with a neighborhood, a Facebook page dedicated to a neighborhood can be successful. And some of the agents that I've seen or heard talk about it, the results they get out of it is you're running it. You're not going to be in there throwing out your name and your stuff all the time. You just set it up and the neighborhood participants are in there. They're sharing information. The only problem with one of those, as we've talked about in some of the other classes, is that they can turn negative sometimes. And that's not good. And then, of course, if you created it, you end up having to decide what's going to happen with the negative individual and how that's going to work. The other part of that would be actually to get somebody else to run it for you, or become a member like Natalie's talking about on that site, so you can throw some of your information out occasionally, but not all the time. All right. When we talk about social media marketing, on here you can see some of the items that are there. When we talk about Megaphone, for example, Remax has the tools already established for us if we just use them. And it's just getting them set up. And those of you that have them set up, are you tracking the results to see what you get out of it? Like, for example, Megaphone has, when you take a listing, it gets marketed for you, but it has to be, everything has to be connected within the system. So we want to make sure that we have that. We're gonna hit just a few more of these real quick. Again, you can do the 8x8 by even targeting on your social media if you wanted to. And again, make it specific so that you know what you're actually working with there, and so that you're hitting the individual that you're trying to hit. Not actually hit them, but you know what I mean. Hit that market. On the attitude, what is your attitude toward real estate sales, and how do you feel about what you're actually doing has a big impact on what's going on with your business. We want to make sure that we have the right attitude for it to make it work. The same thing with the buyer's beliefs. There are still buyers out there that want properties and people that need to sell properties, and that's what we need to be focusing on, helping those individuals get where they need to be. One of the things that was recently, in fact, it was last night. Last night I was listening to the last TREC meeting, and TREC is looking at changing some of the rules. So, for example, they have a rule right now that says that a broker has to return calls to clients or other agents within 2 business days, within 2 days, right? And they're actually looking at making that a rule for you and I as well. And the reason for that, what Scott Kessler was talking about, was they're getting a lot of complaints from agents that say, I submitted an offer, it's been 5 days, I have never received anything back, I don't know what to do. So a lot of those calls are going into TREC, and I'm sharing that with you guys so you make sure that we are not one of those. If somebody submitted an offer, it doesn't matter if the example that he gave in that TREC meeting was 24 offers real quick, like I think within a day or something like that. They had 24 offers on the property, and the agent didn't respond to anybody other than the one that was accepted. Agents found out the offer had been accepted when it went pending on MLS. No response to the agents. And that generates complaints to Trek from agents as well as consumers. So please make sure that we are responding. And like I said, Trek is looking at making that a rule where if you don't respond, that that could be a Trek violation, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. All right, so make sure we stay on top of that. One of the comments they made was, it doesn't matter how many offers you've had, you still need to be respectful for other people. And there's people out there waiting for a response. And I've seen some of those responses that have gone out via email, but it's a response, right? So they did a blanket email to everybody. Sorry, your offer wasn't accepted. The seller chose one that was better or whatever. And in one of them that I seen, they actually listed exactly what the seller had taken as the offer. And that, don't disclose any of that information without any kind of permission. In fact, I probably wouldn't disclose it at all, but you need to respond, let them know that it was accepted. An offer was expected. Here's a direct response marketing piece. First time buyers, just some examples. You have fixer uppers. Repos are starting to come back. They're not going to be as I don't think there's going to be as many as what some people think. Yes, there will be a flood initially, probably, but that's because we haven't done anything in the last 2 years. It's okay. It's not like the world's falling apart. It's not like 2006, 7, 8 timeframe at all. It's a whole different ballgame. But if you want to get into that, or you want to work with those fixer uppers and things like that, are things that are actually moving, and we can actually highlight those in RPR as well. Just listed on this slide, one of the things I wanted to focus on was, this is door knocking around a new listing. Anytime somebody gets a new listing, door knocking around that is really important, in my opinion. It doesn't matter whether it's you or somebody from another company. Even if they get a new listing in a subdivision that you're trying to make yours, I want everybody in this subdivision to think about me when they think about real estate, or when one of their friends says something about real estate. Then I need to door knock every time a new listing comes up. I need to get information out there. And if you can't door knock, then send out a notice that this property just came on the market. But door knocking works really well. If I go out there and I hit, this says 25 doors, I usually say 10 doors on each side. You have 40 doors, right, around the new listing, and let them know that it just came on the market. You're trying to find out if they know of anybody that might want to move into the area. And if you use the script for that, this is Mac with XYZ Realty, for example, or this is Mac with Remax Elite. Reason I came out was, this property just came on the market. I'm trying to find out if you know anybody that might be interested in moving into the area. They say no. Then your next question would be real simple. When's the last time you thought about moving? And if they say no, never, ever, 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 we don't plan on moving, would you be interested in finding out what your property is worth in today's market? Those are the 3 questions that will help get you where you need to be with that, if you want to use those. Just sold dialogue. This is 25 door knocks as well on just sold. So you got just listed, just sold. Those will all help get you where you need to be with that. And then, of course, our power question or phrase is, oh, by the way. Oh, by the way. And if you've listed a home in the area, this phrase works. This is the same thing that Ricky Cruz has used, right? Oh, by the way, I listed a home over here, and just that kind of thing. You work into it. Oh, by the way, is just the phrase to help get bridge into that comment so that you can get there. And then, of course, make sure that we keep track of what you're doing so that you can analyze what's happening, and make sure that if it's not working, we can actually fix what's not working. We can't do that unless we know what it is. And again, all of that information is in the handout that was in the calendar as well. Any questions about any of those? Anything we covered today? Anybody? No questions? All right. So let me just throw one little question out here for you guys. What do you, on Saturday, on Saturday morning about 9 o'clock? Are you guys busy, or if we did a Booge class on Saturday at 9 o'clock, would I have anybody show up?
I'll show up.
All right. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's put that on the schedule. 9 o'clock on Saturday. We'll do we're gonna build the website. We're not gonna do the CRM side. We'll do the website side so that we can have that set up. All right. We'll do that Saturday at 9 o'clock. Is that okay? That's not on the schedule. It will be today. I'll get it put on there.
Thank you.
All right. And if you know anybody else, let them know Saturday, 9 o'clock. When class starts, what I'll do is I'll go live. We'll do remax.net, set up your profile, the same thing we've done in the past, set up the profile, then we'll go over to the website and setting that up and using the blocks and et cetera to get everything going. Everybody good? Questions, comments? Will it be recorded? If somebody shows up and reminds me, yes.